Welcome to the Wholehearted Eating Podcast, where non-diet nutrition, weight-inclusive care, and integrative health collide. We're your hosts, Dana Montes and Christina Hoyt, licensed integrative clinical nutritionists and body image coaches.
And we believe you deserve to have a joyful relationship with food in your body, even if you have a chronic health condition or symptoms that just won't quit. On this show, together and with our guests, we're bringing the real talk, no BS vibe with tangible tools to help you pursue health and wellness without obsession or restriction.
Remember our disclaimer, this podcast is meant for general information purposes only and should not be taken as a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. I'm going to jump right in so people know exactly what we're talking about today. And so to give the listeners a little bit of background before we even get started. So we met at Expo East last year in 2022. God, what is time really?
Right.
But so it was really funny because Christina and I were walking around, we're, like looking for cool new products and, whatever. And we stumble upon you all and you asked me what's the best way to know if you have good gut health? And I was like, gut health? This is what I specialize in. And so immediately I was like, stool testing. And you were like, well, yes, but you're like, actually, you want to take a look at your poop. And I was like, this is a guy I want to know more about.
You're like, here's my card. Let's talk.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So with that introduction, Warren, tell us a little bit more
Here's
about
the
you.
conversation that was coming, right? Okay, here we go. It's great to be here. I really was very excited to meet you, as you could tell. And, just to be able to talk about this. I love getting deep in the weeds, talking about things that otherwise people don't get a chance to. Maybe they want to, maybe they don't want to, I don't know. But regardless, there's really very little opportunity to even have the discussion. So that's the zone I go into. And I feel like I've been doing it my whole life in different fields and different stuff.
Yeah. Well, so interestingly, right, speaking of that, you kind of alluded to this, but I would love if you could tell the listeners a little bit more about you and your background and then how that kind of led to your interest in gut health, right? Because you went from practicing law to running Cake Love to being on Food Network to now here having a gut health product.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah. So background. So I came to DC back in '95, law school. The goal was to go to law school, get credentials to have the authority essentially to go before school boards and PTAs and talk to them about reproductive health education. Because I was a health educator before I went to law school, and I taught sex ed classes. The problem that I kept on encountering was that the high school students that we stood before, they were asking questions that the curriculum I was working with it didn't really contemplate the questions or the answers. I mean, not really. So I wanted some, gravitas to be able to go in front of these groups and say, hey, let's just create something that answers the questions that the kids actually have. Right. That obviously didn't happen. A little
bit of a pivot.
Many different fronts. So, I went to GW Law School in DC. I came in '95. I graduated in '98. Graduated with a degree in public health and a law degree. And my, public health interest, of course, was like prevention and education. And I got distracted from my main goal because nobody wanted to talk about sex ed. I got distracted from, I wasn't really ready to be a lawyer, or I didn't mentally, planning wise, I wasn't really thinking that was what I would do necessarily. But I got a good job as a litigator for Health and Human Services, and I did that for a couple of years, and almost instantly, surprise, surprise, I was like, this isn't going to work for me at all. And I am a guy who likes to cook, and I was pretty comfortable in the kitchen, and I had a New Year's resolution back then. This is in '99. And I wanted to learn how to bake. And I wanted to just kind of get into the kitchen and solve this mystery of flour, baking powder, baking soda, just understand it. As a person who kind of made my social life through law school as like cooking a lot on the side and let that be like the center point. I cook lots of dinners and had people over for dinner, and it was wonderful. But my desserts were almost always just a sweet potato pie. Like that was it. And they were good, and I got really into it, of course, as I always do. But that's all I really had up my sleeve. And I needed to kind of expand the menu just for competency's sake, right? And when I got into it, I realized that, you know what, making cakes is a lot of fun. It's a product that people like. They'll pay a premium for it. And it's like, it was not that, there wasn't a lot of good cake out there as something that people could buy. So I left law to follow a passion for food that was totally different than the passion and the reason why I went to law school, but it was still something I was interested in. And I opened up Cake Love Bakery after a long struggle of figuring out how to do it. But I got it open. We were over on U Street, and it was a great success. It was a lot of fun. It was a really huge adventure. It was great, and I very much still remember it fondly, and all the customers that came in, and just the times and the people I worked with. Like it was really, really cool. And I grew the business and got lots of opportunities. Was on Food Network, hosted a show, wrote cookbooks. It was, kind of went all over, and really had an incredible experience, which is continuing. I mean, like it continues today, but it's in a different form. And that's kind of how we are where we are right now, talking about Spark Bites, because business has got to grow, it's got to evolve, which I swear is one of the most frustrating things about it all. Like you start, you make something, you love it, you get into it, and then all of a sudden you're just like, wait a second, I can't keep doing the same thing because of a whole bunch of reasons, not just one, just many, many, many. Long story short, you got to evolve, you got to change. And we started making products that were working, but we were also, for the business, we were one leg to stand on. Like that's not really good. So we needed to expand. Healthy snacks were beginning to become really popular. This is like in 2015, 16, 17. So I was looking for something to do that was different than just cakes and sweets and, sugar and sucrose and all that stuff. So anyways, I was fixated on going back to this product that we made in the bakery, like back in 2006. It was kind of a healthy thing. I was fixated on foods that I like to snack on. I'm a huge dry fruit guy. I like clean tasting things, I suppose, but I also like the effect, if you can find that, if you can stumble into that, of stuff that's healthy for you, because sometimes it seemed could kind of like moderate or modulate, whatever the word is, like to just smooth things out in my belly. And I'm African American. I love dairy. I can't eat ice cream, pecorino romano, heavy cream. I mean, like many. That's the one thing. So, dude, when we were doing Sugar Rush, right? You gotta like eat product that you're out there. Sugar Rush was a show I would go look at other pastry chefs and see what they're doing and making, and then you would always eat the product with them on TV and like have the reveal the taste and be like, how's it taste? Oh, delicious, right? So I had to like have everything in my mouth, and I
Meanwhile, your gut is like, ooh.
Oh, you have no idea, because everything is like a dessert. It's mousse and
It's a lot of dairy
and
if
an
you
ice
don't
cream.
tolerate dairy well.
Oh, I mean, one thing after the other, and not just like, not yogurt where it's active culture and it's kind of like, deals with it. We're talking about like the biggest molecules of lactose, right? Heavy suckers that you can't even spit out because you're on camera. And then if like you're right next to the person, like you can't spit it out. It's not like, and that's what they do with wine tasting. That's what we do with so many other like foods where they're tasting it to see if this is acceptable and okay. Because if you eat and sample, then you kind of expand, but really from gas, you know. So that, I mean, it's just so unpleasant. And Dana had so many different instances of kind of wading through that unpleasantness that I wanted something that would really kind of help my stomach to course correct and just feel better. So that, you know, some of the many reasons, but like those are some of the bigger ones. And I I I I got started at a point, uh, didn't keep going, and I went back to it when even a group said like, you know what, medical marijuana is coming around, and like, you know, people want to make edibles. Oh, edibles are going to be such a big thing. I mean, I'm sure they are, and they are, but it's mostly just gummies, right? Because people just kind of want to, if you want an edible, like you just want the gummy. Um, but I went into the kitchen and tried something. I was just like, well, if it's medical marijuana, maybe people's immune systems are compromised and they want something that's going to be allergen free and easy to digest and helpful in their stomach. And let me try this, let me try that. I tried like 20 different like things, brought it to this group, brought it to that group. What do you think? Give me feedback, all this stuff, you know, like developing a feedback. That was my whole mission. And there was one there was one time when I made maybe like 7 or 8 different recipes. And at the end of that session where I'm in the kitchen alone and I'm just, you know, trying to figure it out, looking at what I've got. And I said, you know what, Lauren, screw it. Just make something you want to eat. Don't pay attention to if it's got too much sugar or too much of that. Just make it taste good. And I just kind of, you know, it's the same ingredients, but I just changed my frame of reference and frame of my point of view with creating the recipe and how much I would use of things. And I went for it, right? And so I was sitting, I mean, I still remember like at the table and trying this, trying that, rice flour and palm oil and this oil and different fruits, and I put in the mixer and I'm watching it mix together and I add a little bit of more of this and that. And suddenly, like just even in the bowl, it looked different. It looked differently because it's like as it was mixing and coming together and gathering on itself, the dough started to come clean off the bowl. And I was like, huh, that's unusual. I don't see that much. There's some recipes that we have in the traditional bakery that would do that. And that usually to me was like, okay, that's the signal that it's ready. The dough's ready. Don't keep mixing. And it's going to bake off well because there's balance in the formula you have here. Your liquids, your dry and your liquids basically are in balance. It gets more into that, like the carbs, the fats, the sweeteners, they're all in balance. And so I took it out, rolled it out, cut it up, baked it off, brought it to, a couple different people. And immediately, like that last one that I made, people were like, what's this? What is this one? And that was it's essentially a rice biscuit. And they were like, well, that's not very exciting. That's not sexy. Rice biscuit. Here you go. Right. So Spark Bites came later on in terms of the name, but that was it. I mean, that's me walking through like, how did I get to at least the beginning? And the Cinnamon Crunch was the first one. And
got it right
it took
here.
some tweaks. That's right. That's right. We tweaked it, of course, here and there, but basically, the first version, was what it is, and it's changed. But then I built other flavors off of that mother recipe, if you will. Sorry, super long-winded answer.
That's what podcasts are for, right? You know what's really funny, because this kind of brings it back to our first conversation at Expo East, is of course being a GI dietitian, when you're talking about like, oh, like things are well formed and they're pulling away from the bowl and everything. I'm like, are you talking about the toilet or are you talking about the mixer? And, people will be used to this at this point because we talk about poop all the time on this podcast. If you're one of my clients and you're listening, because we talk about poop in every single session that we have. But, like we had talked about then, and like when we talk about prebiotics and, whole foods and everything, and all of the different components that go into having regular, consistent, pleasant, complete bowel movements and everything like that. That is exactly what
Yeah.
you're looking for, right? It's like
Yeah.
things that
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
pleasant to go, pleasant to finish, like
Right.
not everything's
Right.
not going everywhere, and like sorry
Right.
for the visual people, but we're talking about gut stuff today. So
No,
it was
totally.
just
And
funny that my brain went that way.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, I mean that's where mine goes too. And it's funny because I was just talking to someone who did a survey with some people about Spark Bites and just for feedback and whatnot. And they were saying it was come up with something to the effect of the people, and they were like in college and grad students. They just, if they just want a snack, just something I don't know, just a snack and not thinking about it. And I said to myself, it's like, dude, I don't ever put anything in my mouth without thinking about how it's going to come out. I don't ever, every single thing that goes in, I'm thinking to myself, 18 hours, what's this going to be like? You know? Oh, I know this. Okay. Where do I need to be? I mean, like it's kind of pathetic, but like that definitely is part of like the game that I run in my head. And I don't know exactly when that started, but I don't think I'm really alone in thinking that through. And there's definitely like there's an age, I think, I'm sure that like people kind of come to when they start realizing because everything down below starts going on strike. If you keep poking it, you know, don't poke that bear. And I mean, sadly, I think it's like, you're mid to late 40s, things can start kind of not working as well, but definitely when you're in your 50s, it's like you can't just keep throwing it down. And so, yeah, so when you talk about that, people weren't thinking about what it is, and they were wanting, I guess, I don't know, either a sweeter experience or softer experience or less gritty or experience. And I take that when I hear that kind of feedback to saying to myself, like, well, sometimes the medicine is a little, I don't know. I mean, it's not that I want to say like that the product makes you hold your nose when you eat it, because I don't think it does. But like, you know, if you gotta sometimes do that in order to be healthy, then like, two tears in a bucket, just get it
Well,
down.
it also sounds
Um,
like what the kids were expecting was like chocolate chip cookies. And it's like, well, no, that's
yeah,
if that's what you're
yeah,
looking for, then this isn't you're not going to
that's
get
not
that
it.
experience from this product, right? But it to me
Right.
it does taste like kind of oatmeal cookies, right? Cuz that is the
Yep.
base.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Yep. And it's really what it really is. It's a scone. It's a vegan scone. So I took the scone recipe that we used to make with butter and sugar and heavy cream back in the bakery. They're phenomenal. They were one of the best things I think we ever made, and they were really modeled after a traditional English scone. That's what the product is, like, not rice biscuit, and not apple pie and not red velvet cake. Because some people, this is what it was, like some folks, they seem to kind of, like you're saying, they want the chocolate chip cookie, or they want the product that's healthy, or the product that's not even a cake, to have that kind of sweet cake profile, name, flavor, texture, something. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes a product is just what it is. It's its own thing. And you don't have to try to liken it to something else. So I don't know. You're hearing the guy that's in me who struggles sometimes with how to group, how to classify. What is this? I can't tell you many people when we bring Spark Bites to like these buyers at different stores, and they're like, really good, tasty, but what is it? And I'm like, it's a snack. Yeah, but it's not like a salty snack. It's not puff snack. It's not, it's not chickpea snack. It's not this, not that. So yeah, I think it's great to give people something that works for the body and that delivers like a great value, and it's a good snack too. And that's all we're trying to do.
yeah. Well, so to give people a little like context and behind the scenes of, going back to Expo, right? It's like
Mm.
when you're walking around these shows, whether you're a vendor or you're a practitioner or you're a like retailer or whatever you are, there are thousands of booths between natural food products and then supplements and then beauty products and home products and like all of this stuff, right? So it really
Hmm.
takes a
Hmm.
lot to kind of stand out amidst something like that,
Yeah.
especially when I'm sure from, like a vendor side, it's like, well, here's all of the ice creams and here's all the cauliflower pizzas and here's all the,
Yeah.
all the different things.
Yeah.
But I remember, and it was actually really funny because this past year was Christina's first time at Expo. It was like my sixth or
Okay.
seventh time going. So I was really like just teaching her like how to kind of interact with the show. And one of the things
Yeah.
I always tell people the first time that they go is don't eat everything that you see because you will feel
Right.
sick by the end of the
Right.
day,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because
Right.
you can
Right. Like
go
I did with
from
Sugar
like
Rush. Yeah.
eating, we've got things like little Brazilian cheese bites, and then you go to
Hmm.
eating like peanut butter cups, and then you have spark
Hmm.
bites, and then you have steak, and
Hmm.
then and you're just,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
they're all these
Yeah.
little, bite-sized things.
Yeah.
And I remember when we came over to you, and you were just like, oh, try these flavors and stuff. It was so refreshing because, especially with each year, you see the different kind of food trends and stuff that are coming up. And,
Yeah.
taste is a really obviously big, selling point for people. But so often now is like, there's so many of the different, to me, at my palate at least, like way overly sweet artificial sweeteners,
Mm.
trying to make things
Oh my
that
God.
would
Totally.
be, maybe similar to Spark Bites, but taste way off the charts, right? And that's without even going into, like all the different things about artificial sweeteners, but even just like, I don't think they taste good personally. So I'm like, and then when you
Yeah.
taste something
Yeah.
that is like what you have, it's so much more, it's a regular everyday thing
Yeah.
that you can
Hmm.
eat that tastes
Hmm.
good. It's a great snack and it's great for your gut health. It's like, okay, it's kind of hard to find things that fit all three of those categories.
Totally. I mean, all the ingredients in Spark Bites are like off the shelf in the grocery store. Nothing that you're not going to find walking around, just off the street. So that I think that's nice. You can pronounce all the things, like all that's really good. But I totally agree with what you're saying. Couldn't agree more about the whole thing that when you're in the industry, there's so much focus and like value that's put on, well, it has no sugar or it has 0 grams of this
Yeah, they're like, oh, it has no
and
sugar, but also it has eight
you
different
know
kinds of artificial sweeteners in it. I'm like, it's the same
totally
thing.
it's loaded
Stop
up with these
lying.
macromolecule sweeteners that like okay your body can't it won't absorb and so it doesn't have like a sugar load to it to actually affect your pancreas but it still affects your body in some way sometimes it's not gonna catch it and so I don't like that I don't like the taste of it I don't like the deception, I suppose. It's like just be a little bit more honest, upright, forthright. Like that's what I kind of like a little bit. So like I said to you that day, right? Gut health, what's the main like indicia that your gut is actually functioning really well? Like that and I use that in joke in jest, but it's true that's what I kind of how I evaluate it. And I look for these different things because it's the lawyer in me coming out and saying, okay, well, what's the test? What's the test that I have personally, that my gut is in good shape? And this didn't come right away. I kind of wound myself to it. And some people who I shared Spark Bites with as, over time, they kind of came back to me with the same results. They're just like,
Things are better.
yeah, there's a noticeable difference. And the funniest story, I don't know if I told you this one, but this guy I was talking to about edibles and he was looking at doing it in a different city. So he wanted like some feedback and like, just talk baking. And so I gave him Spark Bites and he gave them to his wife or his girlfriend. Day after he gave them to her in the morning, after they went to work, she sent him a photo. And he's like, what is in that? And she's like, do you know what these things did to me? Because she was so moved with like what happened and she had spark bites and they did their job and the job really of the spark bites is it gives you energy it's great some of them have caffeine they keep you going but really it's like they get you going and you experience that. So for me, the what's the indicia? What is it all about? And I'll go for it. And it's just that, like, I think it's a great experience when you have the, as I like to say, it's the I won the lotto kind of experience, right? I've got kids. I've got two girls. They're much older now, but they used to, of course, wear diapers. And sometimes when I had to change a diaper, it was a blowout. It'd be like, oh, it's bad. It was a lot of wipes, and it was difficult. Because they ate different things. But sometimes, and not because they ate spark bites, but just sometimes they just had a perfect bowel movement where there was nothing like to wipe up at all, and it was almost like easy change done in a couple seconds. So that's the bowel movement experience that I want to go for, right? I want that. I don't. There's nothing to wipe. Like, what's going on? And that's what Spark Bites does. That's what Spark Bites does for me. And I see it regularly because, like, really, I'm not trying to go economical with the Charmin, but I just happen to be able to cut back quite a bit because there's nothing really left there. Because the bolus that is expelled is perfectly formed and, holds on to itself.
Mm-hmm. So, what I want to know is what were other people's answers when you asked them that question? Because I immediately was like, oh, stool testing. You're like, oh, wait, what? Like, probably not what you were expecting to hear from me, but what
Yeah,
were some of the
no,
other
wasn't.
people's answers?
I mean, no one really, everyone always smiles and they kind of
They're
begin to
like, hee hee,
laugh.
poop.
Yeah, and they're not really ready. They're not there's not that much language even to talk about it. So then I kind of take it from the point of view of, like, okay, well, just think about toilet paper, right? Single-use paper. Don't we want to reduce single-use everything in our lives? I mean, isn't that the mantra of being green, eco-friendly, save Mother Earth? If I could reduce the greatest single use anything in the globe, I don't think it's envelopes to mail letters anymore. I think it's toilet paper. And I don't hear anybody talking about that. So, like, I take it from that point of view, that angle, and that's really the angle that I would love to, just in general, because I think it serves so many purposes. Save yourself from gut unhealth, right? Save the planet, save the sewer systems, relieve the sewer systems from the wipes, the adult wipes. That whole industry is wrecking the sewer, like the water treatment plants. It really is. I mean, it's causing a problem. And then all the other small businesses that have to post a sign in their bathroom that says, don't flush anything except for toilet paper. That kind of sign never used to be in a men's room, right? It was kind of reserved. People would put it in the women's room. I'm not saying that was like a good thing or a bad thing, right or wrong, but it generally wasn't appearing in a men's room. Unisex, okay, I could see that. But you see that a lot now in the men's room. And I think it's because, when you go, there are wipes out there. You go to the grocery store, you take a look at the wipe aisle or wherever they are, and it's like, don't put a Band-Aid on the problem, like, cure the problem. So,
Mm-hmm. That's what I
you
talk
know,
about all the time, right? Especially because, like, a lot of people, when they start learning more about gut health, or they're like, wait, what I experience isn't normal, like, or actually, we did an episode on
it's
this
no,
a couple of weeks ago, more about like the nomenclature of like normal versus optimal, right? So like the
right.
number one thing that people actually call out of work for is IBS, right? So just because
Really?
non-optimal bowel movements are normal, it doesn't mean that they're pleasant. It doesn't mean that there's, something you have to put up with, every
It
day.
doesn't even mean, yeah, and it doesn't mean that they should be there. Like, yeah, normal for, because the majority of people are going through the mire. I mean, like, that's not where you should be.
Yeah. And, then we start to
Huh.
look to, okay, well, most people are like, okay, I want to, instant gratification. I want a quick fix. And people will go for, okay, I need laxative, or I need gas X, or I need, all those things. And those are, they are solutions focused, but it's also, like you mentioned, like we need to look upstream of like, okay, well, why is this happening in the first place? And this kind of, what I would call a root cause approach is always how I approach everything that I work on in my practice. And listeners would know everything that we talk about on this podcast as well is like, okay, yeah, sure. You could take a laxative if you're constipated. You could, do a couple of these other things that may make things more pleasant in the short term. But why are your bowel movements like this in the first place, right? Yes, we need to look at nutrition, we need to look at absorption. I do, like I mentioned to you, a lot of stool testing with people to see, okay, well, is it a bacterial imbalance? Is there something in there that's not supposed to be there? Is it the way in which we're eating? Is it different stressors that are changing the composition of our gut bacteria, right? These are all things that a laxative can't fix,
Right,
So
right. And I mean, it's great that you do the service, the medical service, of looking kind of at the cellular micro level. And I'm sure there are things that people have or that come to you, but some of them just got to be like, eating behaviors, that kind of are just overwhelming the capacity of a healthy, normal system to begin with. And then on top, and then it's just kind of starting with a couple kicks in its shins because it's, just not getting great service from lots of different inputs, but a lot of it really just being, you're saying look upstream, look all the way at the plate, look all the way at the plate or the bowl or whatever it is you're eating from.
talking about a lot of different bowls today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do want to change gears a little bit, and this is
Yeah,
the
sure.
wild card that I kind of mentioned to you before we started recording.
Mhm.
Unrelated to gut stuff, right? I was reading in your bio that you're self-publishing a
Oh yeah.
sci-fi psychological thriller
Yes.
series.
Yes,
And
I
I love
am.
books. Like a couple weeks ago, we just did a bonus episode on like our favorite books of last year.
No, no way.
Tell
All
me a
right.
little bit more about that. That's so cool.
Thanks. I'm having a great time with it. It's a lot of fun. Writing is something that it's a new passion of mine. And I started right before the pandemic. I had this kind of vision idea of really trying to answer a question, and the question is, what's the world look like when it's run by women? Yeah, that's what I'm curious
I'm
about. Like if
intrigued.
it was, yeah, if women were in charge like completely of everything, like what would happen? What would it be like? What might it look like? And it's sadly it's a fiction. um
Yeah.
but it's one worth looking at. And part of it, I guess, is like I feel like in order to have a discussion about certain things, people don't want to talk about it in the real world. They'll do it if it's fantasy, they'll do it if they know it's pretend, but they'll just back off from the subject matter altogether if it's too close to home. So I created this like crazy world, and I thought it was going to be like a graphic novel or something when I was first sketching out the idea, and someone encouraged me to just try writing it. And, that was 2.5 years ago. Yeah. So I've been very, very busy writing and editing and going back and forth. But recently I decided to just go the path of self-publishing. And I'm really embracing it because I want to get the story out there. I'm, a business person. I'm self-motivated. I, know how to put something together. I'm not saying that like I have, it'd be great to be published, I guess, but the economics of even like going through a publisher, that may not really even be all that great either. Um, Besides, like the whole thing is it's really just an effort to get the work out there and to spawn the conversation and like as an impetus about what the world looks like. And so how do I, what am I writing about? Um, the title is Men Are Doomed. and and it does ask that question. It's like, what's the world look like when women are on top and in charge? And in order to get to that kind of environment and world, I realized that you have to have most of the men die, because they're not going to go willingly. They haven't yet. They haven't kind of handed over the reins, and I don't think they're going to. And so, it's fiction too. They'll just build that out. So, to have that, and what's weird is that, like, to have that happen, it's not you have to have some kind of disease that happens, right? So it's a pandemic, of course, and that's felt like it was a little old just because of the circumstances we went through with
Yeah.
COVID. But COVID really, it gave me so much in terms of showing, what people might behave like, maybe what they won't. Um, it gave me so much though too, in terms of just the inner, like a little bit of the material for like the introspection, on a personal level, macro level. And I find that I write very much about introspection. I mean, I'm many, many, many conversations that each character has with themselves going into it. And that's something that I find myself just kind of doing. And then it's just as a world building and creating scenes and whatnot, I think I realized in the process of writing that, like, characters and chapters are kind of like, it's kind of like a product, kind of like a food product, or layering a cake or building a spark bite and taking all these different ingredients and putting them together on a table and then seeing how they come together and watching the scene grow. And I once I kind of realized that, I was like, oh dude, I not that I got this, but
I've
like,
been doing this my whole life.
yeah. And so that's when I was just like, oh my God, like I felt like I knew what I was doing, and no book is a solo project. I'm definitely experiencing that now, with all the feedback that many people in my life have given me, which has been really wonderful. And then higher too. So like, there's a lot of different websites out there with portals you can, pay for services for different things. And so I got like a 13-page crit back from my editor, for my manuscript that I thought was much more ready than it is. But that's just part of the process. And I gotta say that, like, I don't know if I'd ever have been ready to do this and be so open about sharing what I write if I hadn't had Cake Love and hadn't had the press exposure and been out there and just gone through the friggin' mill, like, here and there. Because it's not easy to put yourself out there with what you're writing. It's it can be kind of all kinds of experiences, but at most, or it's gratifying because it's nice to share that, but it's also it's just it's a gratifying experience, like solo experience. I mean, the writing is definitely a solo thing. You share it, which is huge, but it's it feels so good to get thought on paper that feels substantive. And I swear to you, like, I really feel like it's still going back to that same damn question I had when I first started. It's just like, let's answer the questions that the kids actually have.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not kind of pretend like, yeah, we gotta, like, you can't just totally run a school based on, like, the instant demand of, like, teenagers. I get that. But at some point, you still got to turn around and answer something that they're asking, because otherwise you're completely irrelevant, and they're gonna go find out, on their own, and that can happen in lots of different ways. So yeah, Men Are Doomed, coming soon.
I can't wait to read it, man. That sounds
Yeah,
great.
thanks. Thank you for asking. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
A
of
lot of
course.
fun.
We always like to, get some cool anecdotes from our different guests and stuff like that. So speaking of, right? Well, first, thank you for coming on and talking all about
Yeah,
poop with
my
me,
pleasure.
because we love talking about gut health.
and poop.
But so, I mean, I'm sure people will know where to find you because they've been hearing about Spark Bites for the past month on the podcast,
Yeah.
but we will let them know again. So tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find Spark Bites, and then eventually where they can find your book.
Right. Yeah. So Spark Bites, make life simple. Amazon.com. Search for Warren Brown's Spark Bites, and we've got a store on Amazon. Makes it really simple. You can get it, delivered Prime or etc. Everything's available by the case, but they also have a variety pack, so it's one of each flavor. Otherwise, a case is 6 flavors. We've got a case is 6 bags. We have 6 flavors. 3 are caffeinated, 3 are not caffeinated. Most popular is cinnamon crunch, and I've got many that are favorites. I think my favorite really is coffee, just because it's big and bold in flavors and keeps me going through the afternoon sleepies. And then my book, I'm good. It's not published yet, so I don't have
well,
it
one,
pushed.
I'll update the show notes.
Yeah, we'll do that. I mean, we're gonna try to get it kind of pushed out on all the platforms, but I'm not schooled enough on that to tell you, okay, that's exactly going to be the case.
That's true.
Coming soon. Hopefully be out by May of this year.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks again so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
Hey friends, it's Dana, and thanks for listening to the Wholehearted Eating Podcast. Find us on Instagram at Wholehearted Eating Pod, find Dana at DanaMonsees_CNS, and find Christina at Christina Hoyt Nutrition. We also recently launched a Patreon for our show, which is a member-exclusive platform where you can pledge a small amount to help us support the podcast. And you, in turn, gain access to ad-free episodes of the show, monthly bonus episodes with Christina and Dana, after the episode deep dives with our guests, community episode discussions, listener questions, and bonus content shared only with our patrons, and so much more to come. Check out patreon.com/wholeheartedeating, and of course the link will be in the show notes. And that's it for today, friends. We'll see you next week.